So, bad week for space.
Another bad week for space. I mean, okay, so let's just go over. Last week, we talked about the orbital explosion.
Right, the launch failure of an Antares rocket carrying supplies for the ISS. The most recent disaster,
not long after either.
Right, was a failure of SpaceShipTwo, which is a ship made by Virgin Galactic for space tourism. It's all done by Richard Branson because he wants to get in early on this kind of business. Now, during one of their powered test flights, SpaceShipTwo doesn't behave like a normal rocket. Mm-hmm. It's actually this very small plane design sitting on the underbelly of a much larger plane called White Knight. And so what happens is White Knight flies up, getting SpaceShipTwo above a lot of the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. SpaceShipTwo detaches, engine fires, and it zooms off. Now, one of SpaceShipTwo's technologies is called feathering, where it has these weird asymmetric wings that can right the plane whenever it goes into a tumble. So even if it lost power, it could still right itself. Mm-hmm. Now, what happened was that feathering is a specific configuration of the wings. So it looks like the reason why SpaceShipTwo broke apart in flight is when the engine was firing, the feathering configuration went to the unlocked status, the wings started to change shape, and that happening while the engine was firing broke the plane apart. The pilot was thrown clear of SpaceShipTwo while it was going. Mm-hmm. He survived. He was able to pull his parachute. They were going near the sound barrier at that point, too. So he's in the hospital. The co-pilot died. We believe that was when the failure happened. Mm-hmm. So it really was just random chance that the pilot was able to actually be ejected from the debris without having significant injuries.
At first, before any of the investigation had really started digging in, there was rumor that it might have something to do with the new fuel, but the problem was the debris was too intact for that.
It didn't explode.
Right.
It broke apart.
So it's very different from what happened to the Antares rocket, where it actually blew up. This was just basically an equipment failure, mm-hmm. and it just broke apart upon impact.
And so the investigative teams are looking into the pilot interface. Could any of the wires have shorted and sent the order? Was there any engineering problems that went on that allowed it to be unlocked? We just don't know yet. And that's what the investigation is. Moving on to the investigation for the Antares launch failure.
There's been an update.
Yes, there has been an update. So at the bottom of the Antares rocket are two of those former Russian engines. The U.S. name for them, are the AJ-26s. So it looks like a turbo pump on one of those engines failed. Mm. The fuel wasn't able to move, and that exploded.
Right.
Now, in the wake of this, Orbital has been able to figure out a deal to allow them to continue sending supplies to the ISS. They're going to be doing another 2 missions to the ISS using a different rocket, so a different vehicle to bring up their supplies. Mm-hmm. We don't know what that's going to be yet. And they are also canceling their use of this engine, which is actually really big news. Orbital has a new one in development that they're fast-tracking to be ready in time for 2016.
Oh, okay.
So in 2 years. And they're basically just trying to get away from the old
using the old
engine
stuff.
Parts. Even though those engines have worked for many, many years.
Right. They had proven that they worked. It was, just unfortunate that this happened. And there was some blame on those engines. I heard that someone might have noticed that things were going wrong early, and I don't know if they hit the self-destruct, but they did something. This is what I heard, but it could be wrong, to prevent the rocket from getting any further into the air so that the debris wouldn't spread out over a larger area.
I don't think that happened, since they can point to a specific piece of the engineering, because the turbopump is the most complex part of that rocket engine. Mm-hmm. It's something that the Soviets developed that still does not have anything surpassing it with modern technology. It is just at the height of efficiency, but it's also extremely complex. Mm-hmm. And so if anything's going to break, it's going to be that. And when that failure happened, the rocket started lowering back down because it didn't have enough thrust. All its systems were right. So it was able to keep itself upright even though only one engine was firing. And it actually slid closer to the beach and away from the launch pad, which you can't really see too much of because of the angle of the videos that you guys have been seeing.
But, I mean, thankfully, it didn't get higher off the ground, because if the explosion had happened higher up, there could have been a little bit more damage from the debris. The
debris would have spread out a lot, but there's still significant damage to the launch pad at Wallops.
And the surrounding forest. Well, we'll try and keep you updated next week when we have another space news on Monday. But for now, don't try and go into space, I guess, on either of these two companies' stuff.
Let them work it out first.
No, there's still a bit more investigating that needs to be done. So there's no reason to think that either of these companies are, doomed to fail anymore.
Both have very long histories of being safe. Antares has a long history of working with NASA and of sending up their own rockets. And also Virgin Galactic. These spaceships that Virgin Galactic has made have gone through, I want to say, nearly 24 tests before anything like this has happened.
Oh yeah.
So they've long safe histories, and these are exceptions.
Right. I'm just joking. There's nothing to worry about. These are very, very competent companies. You know who else is competent, Kevin? Us. Yeah. And by competent, we mean nothing about that. Basically, that was a terrible segue to get you to actually help support the show by buying t-shirts and mugs. I know, it was a very bad segue. You can go purchase t-shirts and mugs featuring various designs that we've made over at spacetv.spreadshirt.com. You can also support the show by liking and commenting on this video and subscribing so you can get new videos whenever they first go up on the old YouTube thingamajig. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, etc. There are older videos next to Kevin, and that's pretty much it. That's the usual spiel. So thank you for watching.
Thank you.
And we'll see you out there.